Are we missing one?
มีแบบนี้ต้อง
Oh, marine people are Oh, okay, so we shouldn't wait, right?
No.
Okay.
Is there electric thing that is?
Okay, I want to quickly brief you on the next session. Dave is going to talk about wildlife research techniques, and they are listed on the board. Hair traps, snag collection is one, another one is sign survey, another one is biopsy darts. Over here we have telemetry, pellet counts, scat samples, and camera trapping. On each of these techniques, he's going to refer to those 3 prompts up at the back. Questions the technique can address, like what it is that you're looking for. The scale, and when to use the technique. I strongly advise you take notes in case anybody asks you questions later about these 3 things regarding all 6 of these types of techniques. Okay? Make sense? Anyone need paper? I'm going to explain it again. I will explain it again. There are 6 different types of research techniques Dave will talk about. Hair trap, snag, collection is 1. Sign survey is 2. Biopsy darts is 3. Behind the board is telemetry, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
Radio and satellite is 4. 5 is pellet counts and scat samples. And then 6 is camera trapping. About each of these, he's going to address questions that each technique can address, scale, and when to use each technique. Okay, so he's going to talk a bit about all 6 of these and mention all 3 of those things for each. And I would suggest you take notes in case somebody gives you a test. Okay? And we're going to go until... Yeah. Olin, would you like to translate that, please? Louder.
จะสอนจะพรีเซนต์ทีนี้เนี่ยในเนื้อหาตรงนี้จะมีอยู่6วิธีของการวิจัยยังมาเทคนิคการทำวิจัยแต่ละเรื่องอะไรเนี่ย hair trap snag อะไรเนี่ยพี่จะไม่เข้าใจ side survey biopsy dart telemetry yes เก่งมาก pellet camera trapping ซึ่งแต่ละหัวข้อก็จะมี3หัวข้อใหญ่ๆตรงนี้อยู่ข้างในนะคะพอฟังไปก็โน้ตไปเผื่อเขาจะถามทีหลังดีไหมเข้าใจไหมอันนี้คือเรื่อง
And if he doesn't address them, or if you have a question, stop him and ask him to give you the information. Okay? Dave, you okay with that?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and you could help a little bit to translate. Man, you can help. So, the purpose of this talk is not to directly help you. The purpose of this talk is not to directly help you with the things you do as a wildlife vet. The purpose is so you can understand what wildlife biologists in the DNP do, so that if you have a better understanding of what kind of research they do, then you have a better idea how to maybe in the future interact with them.
เขาบอกว่าเนี่ยที่เขากำลังจะพูดถึงเนี่ยนะคะไอ้6เทคนิคเนี่ยนะคือไม่ได้วัตถุประสงค์ที่พูดถึงเนี่ยไม่ได้ว่าจะเป็นการช่วยในงานที่น้องๆทำอยู่ในขณะนี้แต่เพื่อจะให้เกิดความเข้าใจว่าสัตวแพทย์ที่ทำงานอยู่ในแผนก DNP ในปัจจุบันนี้ค่ะเขาทำงานอะไรกันบ้างแล้วก็ใช้เทคนิคการอะไรกันได้เพื่อจะได้เกิดไอเดียว่าต่อไปข้างหน้าว่าเราเนี่ยเราจะร่วมมือกันงานกับไบโอโลจิสต์ในเรื่องของงานวิจัยเนี่ยค่ะเราอาจจะทำอะไรได้บ้าง
So first I'd like to start with why we do wildlife research. It's important for me to be able to say why I do wildlife research, because every time I try to get money, the people I try to get money from, they say, why is that important? So, for us in the DNP, much of our research is applied. We're trying to learn something about the animals or the ecosystem in which they live, so that the chiefs of the national parks and wildlife sanctuaries can be better managers. So they know about the animals and the ecosystem processes, so they can manage. So we call it applied research. And applied research can address, maybe somebody finds some problem. Maybe they notice something about the deer, maybe their deer are thin, they think reproduction is low, they don't see many young. So maybe it's to address what's going on with some kind of problem, some issue, something they want to know about. The second kind of applied research is a monitoring to see if there are any changes. So we like to monitor populations. Many places in Thailand, the number of sambar, gaur, banteng are low. They're low because of poaching. Sometimes the poaching is for poor people for meat. Sometimes a poaching is a poor person is paid by a rich person to get something for the wall. So monitoring is a way to track the numbers of some species. If we think there's poaching and we want more smart patrolling, we want to do some monitoring of sambar numbers before we start patrolling, and then year by year, as we do patrolling, we hope the patrolling is stopping poaching. We want to see the numbers go up. Or some places, people are coming in, sneaking into the sanctuary, doing some cutting. Maybe it's a non-hunting area and people are destroying the forest and the number of deer go down. So maybe they have increased protection of forests, so they want to see what's happening. So for a manager, the chief of a park, they like to use something called adaptive management. Adaptive management is a very simple idea. You do something to improve, and then you go and monitor and see if you really did improve. And the idea of adaptive management is this goes a cycle. You do something, you monitor. The monitoring is not showing us a good response. You change your management, do something else, and you monitor. So it's a process that researchers play an important role. Okay. The other kind of research is just basic research, understanding nature, understanding animals, understanding ecological processes. And for that kind of research, DNP often needs to open the protected areas up to scientists from academic institutions in Thailand, people who want to come. Maybe they want to study why there's so many species of woodpeckers. Maybe they want to study, we have some 50-hectare plots in Thailand, 2 50-hectare plots, where they put a label on every single tree in the plot. In 50-hectare plot in Hoi Kao King, there are 180,000 individual trees. And the science, the research is not to help the manager manage Hoi Kao King, it's just to understand the distribution of plants, and they get some very interesting results. In the plot in the Kavak Kavyan, they have mapped every species, all 180,000 trees are in the GIS. And in one corner, there are about 10 trees. And that's the only place in the world those 10 trees have ever been found. So that's a basic research. Why are there 10 trees there and nowhere else? Okay. So basic research can start at the genetic level. They want to know how much genetic diversity in the tiger or banteng or elephants. They want to know maybe genetically what's the relationship, how close are the genetics of tigers to lions to leopards. At another level, basic research might be just the process. How does carbon come into the system? And how is it stored in the trees, in underground? So those are some examples of basic processes. Okay, the second thing we want to think about research is scale. We all hear lots about global warming, gases building up in the atmosphere, carbon and other gases that trap heat. And so climate change, the scale is clearly the whole Earth, the whole globe, and the scale is tens of years. We already can see decade by decade some changes, but also the scale is thousands of years. And of all the countries studying climate change, Bangladesh is one of the most advanced studies. The reason is, if the sea level comes up very much, Bangladesh is in deep trouble. There's not much in the way of mountains there. This last year, with climate change, we're really worrying about the polar bear. You can see what's shrinking. The polar bear gets his food in the winter. All the other bears go underground and then they sleep in the winter. They just live off their fat. But the polar bear goes out on the ice in the winter. They sleep in the summer because out on the ice they can get seals. If they can't get out on the ice, they starve to death. So now, down here some places, the bears try to go out on the ice and they fall through. They come back, they wait another week, they go out again and they fall through. So that's a scale. Okay, I made a big point on that. I'm going to jump to a much smaller scale. Sometime when we study organisms, we like to see how individuals of a species interact. So this is two neighboring female tigers in Hoi Kao King. And you can see this female lives over here, this female lives over here, and the overlap zone is sort of small. And actually, this is a few green dots here, but mostly this part belongs to this female. So that's at a much smaller scale. I'll just mention some detail about this one because I think it'd give you some idea to address the questions. So each female keeps the other females out. So you can see in there, pretty much, there's not much overlap. So what that means to a female tiger is that if she raises young, she has to get food in her territory. If she goes in the next territory, she gets in a fight, maybe gets injured and can't raise her young. So we could say that that area we mark, that territory, is her supermarket. And she has just one supermarket. So if she's going to be successful, she has to make that supermarket big enough to raise the cubs. In my last slide, you saw the radio collar female with some big cubs. By the time the female stops killing for her cubs, they're actually teenagers, they're as big as she is. She's still killing for the males when the males are slightly bigger than her. So that female we saw had the 4 cubs. That means she has to feed 5 people inside her territory or supermarket. So there's an applied aspect to this. If I go out, work with Saxon and measure female home range size, then I know how big a supermarket she needs. If she has a big area, it means there's not so much food, and she has to have a bigger area. If she has a real small home range, then it means she has much more prey, better food. So we could say a term we use, carrying capacity. It sounds like a fancy word, but it's just how much land is needed to carry one tiger, to support one tiger. So that's one of the things we'd like to look at. Okay, now I want to jump. I'm still going to use the example of tigers. I'm going to jump to another scale. In this scale, I want to define 2 terms, population and metapopulation. Many times in everywhere in the world, Thailand and America, everywhere, many people in the public don't understand population. They want to know about the population of tigers in Thailand. Well, there is no population of tigers in Thailand. There are many populations of tigers in Thailand. So population is a group of animals that can breed with each other. So we can't have a population of tigers going from Wai Khao King to Top Lan. Because for tiger to be one population from Top Lan to Wai Khao King, some tigers would have to get on a bus to mate with another tiger, right? So a population nowadays is defined by the size of the forest. And one word you all know is fragmentation. We have a lot of fragmentation where forest patches, these would be fragments. And one of the research we look at is, this is a big one, and we got going both ways, and both ways. But here we have it only going one way. And the idea here is this is a source. It's got tigers going out. This one isn't a source. Only got tigers coming in. And what that means is that the mother tigers here aren't producing so many offspring. They're not producing enough offspring to send some the other way. So they use the term source, where things can come from, and sink, like in your sink, the water goes down, doesn't come back. Right? So this is at a big scale. And in Thailand, there are now about 8 populations of tigers. When I started working here, there were 14 populations of tigers. We already lost some tigers. places. So at this scale, we want to know, in this picture, everything is occupied. But maybe that was 10 years ago. Maybe this place here now no longer has tigers. Right? So at this, we would like to do some work at this scale. At this scale, we want the details, where the animals are, how they interact with each other. At this scale, we only want to know, are the tigers here or not? And this is a very exciting technique that a lot of people are using now in the DNP. It's presence or absence. Is it tiger or the elephant or the gaur or the banteng? Is it here or not here? It's a little bit tricky because if I go there and see it, it's there. If I go there and don't see it, what does that mean? I have to tell them. Otherwise, we have to stay too late. So I go there and I see the animal, I see there's a tiger there, no doubt. If I go there and there's no, I don't see anything. What are the two possibilities? Questionable. Okay, but now you tell me, what are the two questions?
Is any food for them around there? Maybe not have the tiger there or have the tiger but you not see because
Yes, maybe it's blind. Right? So I didn't detect the tiger. I didn't see the tiger, but it was there. Or maybe the tiger wasn't there. So in this system, now it creates a lot of good work for statisticians because they figured out all ways to determine the probability of detecting. And I'm going to give you a little math, a very simple math, because I can only do very, very easy math. So let's say there was a 70% chance of my finding the tiger. And I want to map questions and answers. So the question is, how many times do I need to go to that place to find out with some confidence tiger's not there? Okay, I'm going to help with the math. So 70% chance that I'll find it means a 30% chance I won't find it. If I go back the next day, and if I go back the very next day, I would think if the tiger was there yesterday, it's there today. Didn't have time to run away. So if I go back 2 times and I don't see the tiger, it's 0.3 times 0.3. Now it's 0.09. So the first time I didn't see the tiger with 30% chance. Now it's only 10% chance. If I go back a third time, 0.09 times 0.3, or 0.3 raised to the third power. Now it's only 3% chance, right? Now I could go back a fourth time, but unfortunately, Chachuan says, you're running over the budget thing, right? He says, if there's only a 3% chance that the tiger's there, I, as a manager, are going to say, it's not there. I don't have to be exact. I have to make good management decisions with the money I have. Okay? So that's an exciting thing. Now people are doing it all over Thailand. And an interesting reason why they're doing this presence absence. It seems a little simple. You just go around and say yes or no. I used to go around and I'd walk around and I'd say, oh, tiger track, I'm at the half kilometer. Now I've gone a kilometer, I got 2 more, I got 3. I got 3 in the kilometer. Then we say that's the encounter rate. That's more data than just yes or no. But the problem is, if I go someplace and the ground is very hard, I don't see my tracks here, right? And I go somewhere else and it's sandy and I count too many tracks. So for years and years and years, people were looking at the encounter rate and they thought they were getting more data, but it was really not very accurate. I deal with presence absence, try to get around that by looking in a big enough area so that if one place has a lot of tracks and one place it's hard to see tracks, I have a big enough area so I can find the track at least one time. So it actually, by getting less information, will actually get more precision, better results. Okay, so I've used an example at the biggest scale. And right now, Butsabang, starting in 2004, did a presence absence for the whole country. And it was very basic. And her presence absence did not do the detection probability. So now, she and Saket are going back and they're doing just a wet count. And they're going to do each place, so they have to go out and do each place maybe 3 times, 4 times, so that they have a good detection probability. Now, there's one more step to that. If you go out and find you go out one time, let's say we go next month, and we go to this place, we go 3 times, and we find the tiger. We go somewhere else, we go around. That's not good enough, because sometimes a tiger may come here and not stay. And to be honest, I don't give a damn where the tiger goes. I care where the animal's breeding. Right? We're going to have more tigers, and tigers are going to survive in Thailand. They can't only just wander around. They have to stay and breed. So, to do the detection probability, now we have to go back maybe 3 seasons, 3 times. Each season, that may be 9 times, right? Because I want to go back, if I go back this season, I go back this season, I go back this season, it could be 3 different tigers, no breeding. But the chance are, if a tiger could live there all year round, it probably can breed there. Not for sure, but probably can breed there. Now, if I do it in 3 seasons, I can say, oh, it was there 1 season. So, it's like dispersal habitat. If it's there 3 seasons, I can say, probably it's breeding habitat. I would like to see DNP do a lot more, because we don't know. I've been coming here since 1992, and we still don't know for sure all the places tigers are breeding or the places are absent. To be very crude American, we need to get off our butt and get to work. Okay. Okay. Now I'm going to talk about, I talked about scale from, oh wait a minute, I forgot something. Wait a minute, sorry. I skipped something. I told you what a population was. I didn't tell you what metapopulation was, even though we're looking at it. So a population is animals that are breeding together. Right? Anybody can mate with anybody. This arrow means there can be some movement from one population to another, but not normal, not, right? Chances are, if you're a female tiger, the male you're going to mate with comes from here. but maybe there's some chance that the male will come from here. So a metapopulation is just many populations with some chance of animals getting together, but a little bit low, right? So let me see. If we look at where we are now, Sayok has this big road going all the way to Burma. So is the tiger living here the same population as Tumyai and Waikau King? I'm not sure. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's so hard that only, not very often, a tiger comes from Sayok all the way to Waikau King or back. So you might say this side of the road and the other side of the road are two populations, and we have a little meta-population. We would like to know, are the tigers in Wefcom connected to Kenkurjan? If you look on the Thai side of the border, no. No way. Big military camp there, mini Karen, no forest left. But actually, it may be just one population. It may be Waikau King, Sayok, and Kenkurjan are one population because there's good forest in Myanmar. So if I'm a manager, I need to know, is there connectivity? Can a tiger, at least in theory, go from Waikau King all the way to Kenkurjan? And it only has to go in theory. We don't care if it goes halfway, has a baby, the baby goes a little farther, but some connectivity. Okay. So I just forgot that at the bigger scale. Okay, now I want to get down to some detail. And so we have population estimates. We try to estimate the number of animals. For deer, we do this with pellet counts. And I'll talk in detail about the pellet counts in a minute. Another way we estimate for carnivores, we use camera traps. Many of you have heard of the camera trap, tiger camera traps. They've done camera trapping in Tumyai, East and West, in Waikau King, in Top Lan, and now they're starting in Mewang, or Kenkurjan. Another technique that all of you could help with is, instead of taking a picture of a tiger, they take a DNA sample. And there have been, I think, 2 PhDs from Mahidol University looking at estimating numbers of elephants from dung. Okay. And then I've talked about presence-absence already, and why presence-absence is better than encounter rate. Okay, so population estimates are usually on a little bigger scale. We want to make a population estimate for a protected area. We want to, so I would say the scale is kind of a medium scale. Presence-absence is a much bigger scale. And now let's look at ecological studies. So if we use radio telemetry, we can look at home range size. We looked at the home range of the 2 females. We can also look at home range use. And home range use is interesting. So in here, it looks like the home range use they're using everywhere, right? But if they start looking around, there might be some high elevation over here where the tiger doesn't go so often. So home range use means inside the whole home range, what is it really like to use? If you want to do my home range use in Bangkok, Nancy, what is one part of my home range in Bangkok? Susan Road. And Starbucks. Every day my home range is going to Starbucks. And every day it's going to the bookstore to get the newspaper, right? So you could, home range use, where in your home range do you go? Some places, steep mountain, the tiger probably doesn't go. Home range use can go even more detailed. When I go someplace, what do I do? Right? I go to Starbucks to drink coffee. I go to Soy Cowboy to meet the partner. Okay. I talked about carrying capacity already, and that's a difficult word because it's a little strange, but I would like you to know that because that's an important one. So carrying capacity is how big an area it takes to support one animal, right? Because if people are coming into forest and killing the sandbar and killing the banteng, then it's going to take a bigger area for a female tiger to live. The tiger carrying capacity goes down. This is one of the things we want to look at. And then another thing you can do with radio telemetry is look at behavioral interaction. We already looked at one behavioral interaction. We looked at the two females and they're territorial. They don't let each other go and visit. If we look at sun bear or we look at Asiatic black bear, they mix up a lot. They're not territorial. So there's a behavioral difference. We can use telemetry for behavior. I'm taking a long time, I know. Okay, here's another one that all of you might be involved with. Genetics studies. So many of the people doing genetic studies in this country happen to be vets. Dr. Warowitz, who will be talking to you sometime, he and his group do a lot of genetic studies. He sent one young guy to work here. Right? So one of the things we want to look at for some species is how much inbreeding there is. And this might, I don't know if you guys had this in your class, but inbreeding means breeding to your close relative, right? If you breed with your cousin or your whatever, that's inbreeding. Inbreeding depression is if you inbreed and the babies come out not so good, right? So we're pretty sure, we have rules for humans. No marrying your sister because the baby is not going to come out as good. With wildlife, we don't know the consequence of inbreeding. It might be bad, it might not be so bad. So we have to go find out. It used to be that we thought, oh, the only data we have on inbreeding depression is from Drosophila, fruit fly, mice in the laboratory. We had no data from wildlife that really proved that inbreeding was bad. And now it's changed. We're getting lots of data in the last 20 years. We have more and more data showing real examples. It's just hard to get that information because if there's inbreeding depression in a tiger, we have to go out and find many mother tigers and check on their babies and see how they do. That's a hard thing to do. So inbreeding depression has been very difficult to get data, but now the data is beginning to accumulate. So we know it's that. Okay. Then here's another one that you guys can be involved with. Physiological assessment. Blood chemistry, reproduction by ultrasound. I'm not going to tell you too much about the physiological thing because Hardev knows more about it than I do. But in Minnesota, they hunt bears. And so to hunt bears, they don't want to kill too many. So they go out and check. They have a vets go out and check, what's the condition of the bear? If condition is bad, they think the mama bears will have fewer baby bears. Next year we ought to bring down the hunting level. And the way they check is they put something in the lip and something on the tail, and they pass a little tiny current, and it measures how much fat in the bear. If the bear has a lot of fat, it's going to live through the winter. So here's something you guys can help with. Here's something you guys can help with. And then disease detection. I hope you can help with that, and I can't say any more. I'm not an expert on disease detection. But somehow, by the end of this year, we would like the Smart Patrol to be trained. Maybe Partnep has to train you, and then you have to go out and train the Smart Patrol. What should they look for? What kinds of things should they look for to know an animal? What's the scale of this one? The scale is the whole reserve. The scale can even be the whole complex. Physiological condition of blood count and reproduction, it means you've got to handle the animal. The scale is very local, right? If we want to make this scale larger, we have to go different places in the reserve and do some sampling. This scale needs to be a big scale because we want to see if one population is connected to another population. And this one, I asked Dr. Partnep about, and I asked Felicia about, and can we pick up scats of different species and bring them back to the laboratory and see if something about disease? If it is, that makes some good research project for you. Okay, why do we want to know how many deer there are? I talked about this already. There might be hunting, and we want to see what the level of poaching is. It might be the habitat is not good, and we want to try to improve the habitat. So again, we want to know how many deer. And if we can monitor the number of deer, then if the chief tries to do something to produce more deer, we can measure whether the deer are increasing, and if they're not increasing after he tries to do something, we start adaptive management. We start thinking of something else we can do. And then I put in here direct counts versus indices. Indices is not looking at the animal. If I see pellets on the ground, I know a sandbar was there, right? So some people like to make a direct count. They say, Dave, I want to see the animal. That really tells me something. And they say, this indices, I don't know if that deer dropping, does that really tell me something about the number of deer? And I'm the other way. I say, I like the indices because when you walk through the forest and try to see the deer, you don't know how many run away. And if you happen to be a noisy guy, a lot of running. So there's some struggle. I don't know if I'm right. I don't know if the other guy's right. We're trying. We work right now all over for tiger management. We're trying to see is it direct count or indices better. I don't know the answer. But right now, we're using in Wake Up King a pellet count. And so this is on the scale. I'll show you the next slide. This is our scale is this area here. And that's exactly that area that I showed you with the 2 female home ranges. So our scale here is 2 female tiger home ranges. We made Altogether, 200 transects, and then we randomly selected 60, the red ones, and people are going out there and counting them. Now, sometimes when you do research, something seems too hard, too much work, and we don't do it for a while. And that's what happened with this method here. So what we used to do is go out and walk around and do this. Oh, sorry. Okay, we used to go and do this. We'd walk along, we'd walk 20 meters, and we'd search one pellet group, two pellet groups. Off this one, 50% out, we don't count it. So this one has two pellet groups and one not. Right? And we didn't know how many deer there were. We only knew how many pellet groups. So that's a relative abundance. If this place has more pellet groups than this place, it has more deer. But we don't know how many more deer. So then we decided, no, that's not good enough. I want to know exactly how many deer there were. And so about 3 years ago, we went to the breeding center. Two women who work for Saxon went down there, and they had 6 sandbars. Boy, they had a tough job. They had to clean all the dung. They had to wear masks. They had to get many workers, you know. It cleared every pellet group out of the whole place. It was dusty for 2 days. We cleared it out. And then they let the deer go back in there. And here's the study. So that's the area. They cleaned it all out. They made sure the deer had the same food to eat that they have in the forest. Because if I'm counting the number of pellet groups and I feed them a different food, you're going to say, Dave, I don't like your study. They defecate at a different rate if they have different kind of food. And actually we know that because the deer has 4 stomachs, and if it's a high protein food, it goes through faster. If it's low protein, it goes through. So we have to feed them the same food. Well, we did that, and we found on the average 10.4 pellet groups per deer per day. Okay. I'm taking a long time, I know, but I want you to appreciate a little bit of what we're doing. So we take these plots, I said we decided we had to do a lot of more work to get the absolute number. So the first time we go through, we went all to every one of those plots and we cleaned them in the jungle. We cleaned, raked, cleaned them. It was a huge amount of work. It takes us now 30 days to clean, and we increased our sample to 90 now. So they're just finished, they're up at Kopak, and they're just finishing clearing. It took 30 days. Now they're going to go back to each plot exactly 30 days later and see how many pellets. Okay? Now they know exactly how many days they've been accumulating. They know how much a deer, how many pellet groups a day. They can calculate exactly how many deer. A lot of work, but now we have very, very good information. So just think back to when I was talking about the supermarket. Now we have a measure of how much is on the shelf in the supermarket. Right? We have a measure of how many deer in that Tiger's supermarket. So this is, I think, a very detailed study, but it's at the level of Tiger home ranges. And then what Atra Centurion is doing is, so far she has 6 of these places all over Waikau Kingdom. And what she's going to do is, what habitat's that in? What habitat's that one in? And she's going to make a map from those 6 places, how many deer in the whole park. This is her sample, and she's going to make a map of how many deer in the whole park. So she'll be able to say how big the supermarket is in each female's home range, and she'll be able to say overall. Okay. So 2 scales, the scale of a tiger's home range and the scale of the park. Okay, so that talked about the deer. Now let's talk about estimating the number of tigers. We want to know, are the number of tigers going up or going down? And now we have a problem, because with camera trap, you get a picture of every tiger that walks by the camera trap. And sometimes teenagers walk by the camera trap. And as a matter of fact, I know some teenage tigers that look pretty damn big. They look almost as big as the adult tigers. And we don't know for sure whether they're teenagers or adults. So we don't know, are they breeding tigers or just young teenagers? So camera trapping is a good estimate, but it has a problem. We don't know whether they're breeding tigers. We really want to know how many breeding females there are, because females take care of their young. Males are kind of useless, right? At least some of you women should be useless. Okay, but really they are, because if there's one less male, another male will breed 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 females, right? Okay. So if we use radio telemetry, we look at the size of female home ranges. That's a measure of how many tigers the habitat can hold. If we use camera traps, it's also a measure, not so good. Okay, but anyway, we're doing a lot of camera trapping, and you can see it's a male. You can look at the pattern, and somebody in Africa did a diagram of how big the belly hangs down to determine how long it since it had its last meal. I'm not sure that's so good, but somebody did that. So I just pointed that out. But obviously, this has not had a meal, right? Or this could be a teenage female tiger. Because in general, and I'm going to get in trouble for the 2 older women here, but in general, young teenage tigers are thinner than big old moms. Okay. Just to make sure everyone stays awake.
I remember that day.
Okay. I'm not going to go through this. I already talked about it. We talked about a metapopulation. We look here. This is not connected to this if we just deal with Thailand. And there's some damn project that wants to make a corridor here. There's too much nationalism for Thailand. Because remember, the tiger is not a tiger. Right? So in fact, there's probably a big corridor right here. Right? Okay, enough sense. This is a big scale. This is the presence-absence scale. It's good for genetic studies. There's a student right now wants to get some tiger scat from here, tiger scat from here, tiger scat from down there to see if they're closely related to this. Okay. I talked about presence-absence, and I gave you the example 0.3 times 0.3 times 0.3. Well, how do we know presence or absence? So we can use the scat. We use mostly the crack. We can use a kill. Now, how do we know that kill is not by a leopard? Anybody have an idea? Look at that. It's kind of hard to see. Anybody know why that's not a leopard? Killed that animal?
What's your question?
Did a leopard or tiger kill this buffalo? The leopard has little tiny, they can't chew those bones. Look at those big rib bones here, all chewed up. No way a leopard can do that. So if I find that, I can say president. If I find that, I can say president. I find that as a president. What's this guy doing? Yes. Saxon has a guy working for him on side. He has a nose that's unbelievable. Go to the tree. Yeah. And you know what? Would you like to go smell trees that tiger pissed on? Actually, yes. Because the smell is wonderful. It smells like buttered popcorn, just like when you go to the movies. Yes, it does. You have to come and try. Okay. So, anyway, he's checking out. And then, here we have a President Sampson's, we have a track, with a cup track, and we can say, oh, definitely we have breeding there. And somebody says, how do you know that's not a leopard? Well, I want to see the leopard that walks alongside a big tiger. Not very likely. Going to get eaten up. Okay. Okay. Capture, I already talked about Pornchai's technique, but now I put this one in because this is where you guys come in and help again. All right? This was at the breeding center. We had a workshop there about 3 years ago, a mobilization workshop. Hopefully we can have another one for all of you. There's a tiger. This is a big area about, I think almost 1.5 hectares. And so we tried the snare. We tried Pornchai's snare there. Now I have 2 more snares. One new snare that looks like it's wonderful. But when the Pornchai snare catches the tiger here, this one looked like it may catch it up here. That's good because the tiger can't get out so quick. So we like the idea. I don't want to use that snare and find out up here is dangerous. Right? So we need your help. We need something. We're going to have a vet team down there. We can try the new snare. Good job for you, right? And then if it doesn't look so good, we have a whole team down there to make sure it works. So you guys can do some basic applied research to help the research team. Okay. I showed you this already. So she had 4 cubs this size, and before they left her, the males were bigger than she was. So she had a lot of, she had to do a lot of, I already went over this, but this is kind of interesting. The other one I didn't show you, the blue line. The blue line is the male. And so it's got 2 females. What about up there? You think a female lives up there? I'm pretty sure. That happens to be near the headquarters at Wakeout King, and it's very good habitat. And look at over here. I think probably a female's living over there. So I think he has 4. And what happens is, this is a kind of high mountain. So maybe the female's home range is like this, but he doesn't have to patrol up there because she doesn't go up there. You can find her down here. Right? So I'd be willing to bet that that male has a 4 females. Okay. I'm not going to go through this. It's just some home range sizes, and we got some 90, 70, 80, mean is 74. Now we went to another part of Wakeout King, down by the the Wakeout King River, and we have some home ranges now down to 26 square kilometers. She has a better supermarket, smaller one, right? And down by the Wakeout King River, beautiful grass, really good habitat for saddle. Okay, enough. And how to analyze, this is a kind of new method being worked out by a modeler from New York City. He works for city planning in New York, and Atra's in charge. They come up with a new system to do home range analysis. That's kind of nice. And here's some detail. So each one of these is only 17 days. Now look here, this male here, after the orange dots are the male. And look how he goes. You see some of these lines are heavy? That means that guy went back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. So he went all the way around his home range, maybe making sure no other males came in. And a lot of back and forth. Just look at the heaviness of the line. Here is a female, and she doesn't have young right now. Or they're very big young. And she can go wham, 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 everywhere, right? And this one, look over here. This one's got cubs. The green is her area, but for this 17 days, she's using just a little tiny area. And her cubs are quite young, and a lot of back and forth. She's moving those cubs. She's going somewhere, going back to get the cubs, going somewhere. Now, that same female, here was that first one, cubs 4 to 5 months old. 6 or 7, now she started using a bigger area. And now the cubs are 8 and 9, they're going with her everywhere, and her home range is a lot bigger. So, this can give us some detail about the behavior of a female tiger as she grows up. I'm almost finished. Now this one is the number of hours that a tiger stayed in the same place. So 15 hours, right? And here, 24 hours. Here, 2.5 days, and so on. So these are all places where a tiger stayed for some time. And we hypothesized that there's a kill. But a tiger is kind of like me. They don't like to sit around too much if they get bored quick. So if they stay somewhere, usually they have a sandbar. If they have a sandbar, they can stay up to 4 days. Right? Otherwise, they're moving on. So that's hypothesized. That's terrible. I don't like to hypothesize. I like to check the hypothesis. Right? So one of the things that Atra and her team are doing is now, for this, we didn't get this information until after we got the collar back. 5 months after we put the collar on before we got the data. So we could only hypothesize. Now we get the data, goes up to the satellite, and we get it right away. Somebody said that's not bad, Dave, because you're going to go to Soy Cowboy and turn on your computer to find where the tigers are. But I don't like that. I want to be out there in the jungle. Now, if we go, if we could have gone, this is April 8th to 11th, what if we got the data on April 12th, and on April 13th we went out there? We could find the killer, right? Now we get a lot more information. What if this one was no kill? We went out there as a female tiger and we found some big male tracks. Oh, by the way, those cubs are getting big, maybe breeding again. So a lot of information we can get. So you can't sit and just look at the internet. You still need to go in the jungle even more when you have it. And it's more fun anyway. Okay. I think I'm going to skip this. I think I've done enough. I'll end up just look at this without the detail. But this is a model. So we're trying to figure out the rate they move, female that's fertile, female that's pregnant, a female with cubs, she slows down, a male outside its area, inside area, feeding, hunting. We're trying to build a model here so that over here we have tigers moving around and here are the deer. And the reason we're trying to build this model It's a very simple idea. You could say, oh, Dave, that's too fancy. Why are you doing all this modeling? I don't even know if it's true. But what if I go to the Director General and I say, you have to build a corridor from here to here? And Dave, he says, are you sure? And it's going to cost me 3 years' work and a big budget to build that corridor. You sure it's going to work, is it corridor? So maybe I have to build some models sometimes to be able to test things, because at least it'll give some idea if you should do something. So there's some it's not just some guy who likes math and computers who models. Sometimes we need to make a very, very basic model to help us to manage. Okay, I think that's it. I hope it's not talking much. This is the kind of summary, and at this point, I do over Nancy and you guys will go.
Okay, I know that we're over time, but I want to wrap up with Dave saying, Dave, I'm going to put you on the spot. I am going to quickly address each one of these questions, and you have 30 seconds per prompt to respond to it. Okay?
They don't have to do it?
You're going to do it first, because some of these I need to hear direct. I always like putting the teacher on the spot. Okay, so Dave, tell us, what questions can you address using a hair trap, snag, or collection?
Okay, you can look at connectivity, metapopulation structure. You can get genetic samples and look how much inbreeding is going on. The scale is at the metapopulation level, landscape level. I already said what you use it for, all right? So,
Did everybody get that? Because I'm going to ask you later. Did everybody get what you just said? Anybody have any questions about hair trap? What questions are addressed? The scale and when you...
Scale more than one population. Landscape scale. The metapopulation.
Let's write it up there, yeah? You want to write the answer?
No, they're going to write it.
They're going to write it?
Okay.
Okay, Dave, go ahead.
Science survey. Presence, absence. Scale of the whole country, scale of a whole complex. Right? That's the scale. When do you use it? You use it when you want to make some large-scale decision. For example, WEFCOM. How much of WEFCOM has tigers? It's 17,000 square kilometers. We don't know how much of that 17,000 square kilometers, actually it's 19,000 square kilometers, sorry. We don't know how many actually have tigers. I think only 50% of WEFCOM has tigers, so we need to go out and look. All right, next one, biopsy dart. What are the questions? You can use the sample disease. You can use it to do genetic studies. The scale, big scale. When do you use it? Almost, these kind of go together. Okay. Anyway, here you use it when you can't handle the animal, right? So you can get the sample at a distance. Okay.
Any questions about biopsy darts? Did you have a question?
No.
Are you sure? You know when to use it?
Yes.
Okay. Hey, Dave, go ahead.
Okay. The question you answer is, what's the abundance of animals? The scale can be at the level of a protected area or smaller areas. Right? And pellet counts is the abundance of deer or cow or bunting. If it's bunting, it's not pellets, it's just a dung pile, but same thing. And here, the scale can be at the scale of a female's home range or two females' home range, or we can try to build a model to make a prediction for the whole of Portugal King or the whole of Western.
Any questions on pellet count? Now's your time to answer. Ask, I should say. They're all nice.
All right. Telemetry. Now, this is the one you better write fast. Home range size. Use of the home range. What parts of the life? Just think of Starbucks and the bookstore. behavioral interaction, social organization. Oh, social organization. That might be soy cowboy, right? Okay. And let's see what else. Oh, activity. Is it active in the day or is it active at night? Some things like civet cats are carnivores, right? Little civet cat. But the carnivore, even though it's a carnivore, is a prey item. Leopards just love civet cats. So the civet cat is never active in the daytime. Only see them at night. In the daytime, if they start moving around, they get eaten. So some activity. All right, the scale here is usually local. Now, with telemetry, we figured out another scale. So when we look at social organization, when we look at behavior, when we look at home range size, we can think of a study area. So we tried to get this tiger, and the male and the female. I showed you we had 2 females and how they interact. But we thought of another scale for telemetry now. What about the scale of the landscape? Now we want to see how big that supermarket is. And so let's take Westcom, many different reserves. Let's take King John and Bluebird. And so I want a tiger here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here, one here. And I can check supermarket size across the whole landscape. This is a little bit of a new idea because normally we want to get neighbors and get something about social organization. But what if we already know enough about social organization?
15 seconds.
Okay, I'm finished.
Okay.
I'm finished.
You good? Any questions for Dave? No? Okay. If you don't have a marker at your desk, please hold up your hand and Owen will give you one. If you need a marker, raise your hand, please. Okay. Dr. Partep has said you are not allowed to have dinner until you fill out the pages. He's not listening. So, we're going to take a group test, which means that I'm going to give you 5 minutes. I am going to give you 5 minutes where everybody has to go and fill in all the questions. So go in, fill in any gaps you see, and there shouldn't be any blanks. If you see that someone wrote something wrong, scratch it out and put it right. Dave's going to look and decide who gets to eat dinner. Right, Dave?
But one thing.
Oh,
I need to whisper.
Okay, Dave is much nicer than I am. He says that you don't have to answer number 3. So just number 1 and 2 on each one. And ma'am, can you please translate what everybody needs to do?
ก็คุณแนนซี่บอกว่าให้เวลา5 นาทีนะคะให้ทุกคนช่วยกันมาเขียนบนนี้ทั้ง6เทคนิคเลยว่าที่คุณเดฟอธิบายไปแล้วเนี่ยว่าเราต้องแต่ละเทคนิคนะคะเราต้องคิดถึงประเด็นอะไรบ้างในการใช้เทคนิคนี้ในการทำงานนะคะคิดถึงประเด็นอะไรบ้างที่คุณเดวิดบอกมาให้ลิสต์มาให้ครบทั้งหมดแล้วก็พื้นที่ที่ใช้ในการทำงานทำวิจัยเนี่ยสำหรับเทคนิคนี้เนี่ยพื้นที่ขนาดไหนซึ่งคุณเดวิดบอกไปแล้วแต่ละอันนะคะแล้วก็เราใช้จะถูกกันเลยนะคะให้แค่2 อันนะคะแล้วก็ถ้าเกิดว่าเราเห็นว่าคนที่มาเขียนไว้แล้วเนี่ยผิดอันนั้นผิด ขีดออกเลยแล้วเขียนใหม่นะคะโอเคค่ะมีปากกากันแล้วเข้าใจไหมคะโอเคมีปากกากันแล้วเข้าใจไหม
Does anybody have any more questions for Dave? Is there anything you don't know that you need to answer quickly?
มีอะไรที่แบบคุณเบฟพูดไปแล้วจับไม่ได้อยากจะถามตอนนี้เลยก่อนที่ทำสไตล์นี้นะคะที่ถามเลย
He wants you to repeat all of them. Very good. All right.
Connectivity.
What's that?
Connectivity.
Okay, so does everybody get it? Everybody's going to be up, writing, and since Dave took off number 3, you only have 4 minutes. Okay. Are you ready? Is everybody ready?
Probably not.
He's ready. If you're ready, give me something. Okay. Go. You have 1 minute.
I hope I didn't create any glasses.
วันที่3
ที่มันเกี่ยวกับ
เดี๋ยวพูดตรงนั้นมาเขียนอะไรจ้า
เขียนได้กันไหน
ทำลอยซอยไม่ใช่ว่า
ได้ตอบต้องมีเลยนะเขาบอกไม่ได้แล้วจะจบจบแล้วเขียนไปแล้วอ่ะแต่ที่พอไปเรียนก็จะมีอะไรบ้าง
Okay, wrap it up and have a seat.
ได้ค่ะ
ยาว
เราไปทุกคนก็เขาอยากมีส่วนร่วมแต่แย่แบบนี้เลยไม่ได้คิดมาแบบนี้แบบนี้อะไรอยากไปเขียนอะไรแล้วคนแย่งเขียนเราเลยคนแย่งเขียนได้หลายเขาอยากเขียนเขาอันนี้ไม่ต้องพูดไป
หลาย
เขาฟังไปแล้ว
นี่ไม่ได้
This is right, DNA analysis, looking at inbreeding, that's good. Scale, all distribution areas, and one, and I think you want to say greater than one population. That's what you mean by good. Okay? That's good, very good. Right. Sign surveys, presence, absence, large scale, big group, big scale. And this, I think, is really important to start doing in Thailand. We really need this information right away. And I got to say something else about it. Right now, there's a plan to do the northern half of West Coast. And I want to see the expert that analyzes this data. Remember I told you the 23 times 23? It's a little more complicated math. I want to see that done in the DNP, not by some NGO. And this one, biopsy darts, big scale, sample collection, genetics and disease, that's great, right? And this is really the same, right? Just two ways to get the samples, right? And what I'd like to know by the end of our 4 workshops is, can we really use this to diagnose really many diseases? It'd be nice to know. Okay, telemetry, home range use, behavior interaction, social activity, day and night, good. Local and landscape, that's great. Remember, the landscape scale use of telemetry is something new, right? And people are finding it, even in America, everywhere, finding it very strange. That means you go put a radio collar here, over here, over there, over here. You can't do this scale without GPS collars. And you really can't do it without GPS collars that send the data up and give it right back. Saxon told me, and I said, let's do this landscape scale. He said, no. He said, Dave, let's find out if these damn GPS collars really work. And it turned out our first one didn't work very well. We changed the company, it didn't work again. We changed the third company, we got a good one. Now we're working that scale. Deer, gaur, banteng, population estimates. You get the number of animals, that's great. And we do it at the scale of the female home range, and we're going to do 2 female home ranges. So we're going to do it at that level, plus model the whole protected area. We're going to do it at those 2 scales. At this scale, it's going to be a model, but it's going to be based on good hard data. Okay. Camera trap, home range, tigers are carnivore. I'm not sure about home range. Okay? We're going to get population estimate, number of individuals, scale, small area, up to protected area. Okay? In Nepal, they've gone across the whole landscape. Now, I want to show you, I'm going to show you just 1 minute why the home range doesn't work. Okay, so there's the home range of the tiger. And there's the home range of the adjacent tiger. And you camera trap here, 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 and there's the home range. You never know how far out do I put the camera traps to get the whole home range. So camera trap not very good for the home range. Right? We need a radius luxury for the home range. So it's more for the population. Okay, thank you guys. Let's have fun and see more.
Just quickly, I want to wrap up. These are the objectives we said that we would do by Thursday. Let's see what we did today. Did we explore the roles of wildlife vets, wildlife biologists, and zoo vets in Thailand? Yes, maybe, or no? I got this. It's okay. I got this. Yeah, we started to talk about it. We haven't really met this completely, but we've started. Have we explained various wildlife research techniques and when to use each? Yes, kind of, or not really? You can give a kind of. Okay, it's first workshop. Okay, we've started. Good. Remember, there's many workshops to come. Have we discussed the ecology of wildlife diseases? Not yet. No, we're going to get into that tomorrow. Have we discussed wildlife disease epidemiology? Not yet. Practice basic safety measures? Not yet. I think that's on Wednesday, correct? And differentiate between the roles and responsibilities and positions in vets? Not yet. Explore how wildlife serves environmental sentinel? Alicia talked about that just a little bit, so we're about here. We're starting to get there. Okay? You think that you've got some new knowledge and some new skills? Maybe some new knowledge. I learned so much about tigers, who knew? But I do think we have some renewed energy, so thank you for participating in some of our not always traditional ways of doing some presentation. Thank you very much. Dave, thank you. It was a nice time.
ก็วันนี้จบการสัมมนาจบการอบรมเชิงปฏิบัติการวันแรกนะคะค่ะจบแล้วค่ะก็ทานข้าวตอน6 โมงเย็นนะคะแล้วก็พรุ่งนี้กินข้าวเช้า7 โมงครึ่งค่ะ
Marta, before we go, I have one question. Anybody work at a breeding center that has a montane? Montane.
ศูนย์พักผ่อนบัวแดงบ้างไหมคะ
No?
ใครคะยังจะไม่ยกไม่ได้ไปจะหน่อย
You have montane? Both? Yeah. Okay. I want to talk to you. Taiwanese one? Huh? Small size? Small 70. I know, but I don't